The following podcast is not relating to my teachings and work at Del Cedar Medical Center and is for entertainment purposes only. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Life of Flow podcast. And today we're going to introduce Cesar Fuentes. Cesar is the CEO and founder of Q Construction Solutions. And today we're going to basically talk about how to manage and deal with a contractor when you want to build or remodel your house, which can be a nightmare. And Cesar is going to give us some insight into how he works and tips and tricks on how you should proceed.
He's also going to build our house.
He's also going to build Miguel's house.
He said he would, right?
Yeah, he said he would.
If anything comes out of this podcast is we're just getting free advice from a lot of people.
Free consultations. All right, everyone, enjoy.
Take it around.
Two vascular surgeons walk into a bar and come out with a podcast. We are talking everything vascular and not. Welcome to the Life of Flow podcast.
And we have here Cesar Fuentes. Cesar is an amazing individual. I've known him all my life because he's a family member. Randomly, we both ended up living in Austin. Cesar has a super interesting story, super smart guy, worked for IBM for a while, and then decided that that wasn't enough for him. So he started his own business, which he will explain. So Cesar, welcome. Why don't you give our audience a little bit of your background and the name of your...
fantastic. Thank you, Lucas and Miguel, for having me. I'm so excited to be joining you on your podcast. This is very meaningful. Let me give you a little bit of my bio. Essentially, I spent over a decade working at IBM, and I became one of their youngest executives. And I started in New York. And then over the years, I transitioned on to Austin. They had a big facility and a lot of operations here in Austin. I learned a lot about IBM. It's a great influence in my life and how I operate. Along the years, I succeeded and I became an executive. Ended up managing close to 200 engineers and ended up managing operations that had a budget of about $250 or more million globally. And there was a lot of knowledge gained through the process on how to improve any operation. But on the sidelines, I was always doing side hustle projects in construction. I would be a developer of something, whether it's purchasing a lot, building houses in that lot, segregating it, splitting it, selling it in pieces, condo regimes, multifamily, or investing in general. I would purchase properties that would be very ugly, per se, in very bad condition, and I would make it beautiful, and then I would sell them after a while. And all of that took me in a trajectory in which I was just building my skill set. I also gained a master's in engineering in construction from Purdue University. And at what point, we hit 2008, and we all know that there was a massive recession happening, and we all know that the construction industry was totally in chaos. And as I'm going to church, a lot of the church members were in the construction industry and they were unemployed. And I said, man, I cannot live with me being so successful as an engineer and then going to church every Sunday and seeing all of these people unemployed. So I said, let's start a construction firm. Either way, I've been doing it on the side as a side hustle. Let's employ all of these people. Let's get with a lot of friends. Let's buy properties. Let's employ them and have them fix those properties for us. And we'll scale from there. And we'll let the business be whatever it is. But at least my conscience was clean at the time, thinking I'm doing something to help people. That's how Q Construction Solutions started. That was the origin. We bought, well, in the beginning, because I was a client, used to it for quick. I would be grabbing property real quick from people that were about to lose them. And in a sense, we were helping them by helping them avoid foreclosure. We were also moving really lean and effectively operationally so that we can improve all of these houses very quickly. In those days, it was almost impossible to sell anything. So we would literally get it ready to be leased. And then we leased them. Sometimes I had 5 properties in one street. We had everybody working in those houses in the same street. Some properties were in Dallas, some properties were near Galveston, some properties were in Austin. So we were in different places managing what became a fairly big operation as I started to grow. But over the years, other people learned about us, fellow investors, friends, colleagues, realtors that I was working with, and then suddenly they would want us to do other projects for them, right? And we would add not just my projects and the projects for the acquisitions of the investors, but also the projects for friends, investors, and anybody else that wanted to give us business, we would check way and play. And about 15 years ago, basically, we had a situation. I'm sorry, not 15 years ago. In 2015, we had a really awesome situation happen to us. We were working on our projects. I was still doing both roles. And in 2015, this individual contacted me, and it was a lady. She was almost in tears. And she said, look, Cesar, I don't know you, but you're a really good friend of a friend, and I need help. My hair salon is flooding. Nobody's answering. It's September 22nd. It's almost Christmas time. This is the peak of my business. This is where I make my money, and nobody is responding, and my hair salon is flooding right now. I was out of town, but essentially I said, look, I'm going to send a crew. I don't know you. I'm vacationing with my family, but we'll take care of you. I will make things happen. So I sent a crew immediately. Same day, they took care of her. They cleaned up the space. They restored what they needed to do. And she was back operationally. As a result of that gesture, she comes back to me and says, look, I want to repay you somehow. And in my head, I'm like, there's no need for that. Let's just take care of the guys that helped you, which is essentially my motivation for all of this. And let's move on. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Well, she said that she would repay me, and with blessings, and she did. I'll tell you, big time. She bought a hair salon in downtown Austin. She said, I want you guys to build it. I want you guys to make the most gorgeous spa and hair salon all combined. Here's all of these specs. I want you to do it. Invoice me in the end. I don't care how much. Just take care of it. And we did. We made it beautiful, and we charged the fair price. And ultimately, we thought, well, that's it. Well, actually, she said, I'm not done with you, because now I'm going to tell every single lady that comes here that does her hair that you are the one to do their house. And suddenly, out of nowhere, I have 20 contracts in front of me all at once. And I'm like, what is this? I'm moving from being my own client, being a successful executive at IBM, to then suddenly having a whole bunch of contracts in front of me for very successful people. Believe me, all of these people were very successful at what they do, and these projects were very high end. And everything started moving in that direction. Not only the company, but also myself. I got to a point in which I couldn't sustain both things. I couldn't be an effective, successful executive at IBM and be a successful CEO at a company. So I had to make a decision, and I chose keeping the families employed. So 2015, I transitioned completely into becoming the CEO full-time for this company. In 2016, as a result of some of those projects that the special lady contacted us with, we got to film House Hunters, the TV show. And then we have to start thinking about branding. We have to start thinking about, what is proper policies? What are the SOPs of the company? What's going to be the image? How are we going to create proper proposals? Everything got engineered. And at that point, since I was working full-time for the company, I literally put my engineering hat into it, and I constructed every single aspect of the process as if the same way as I was creating new operations for IBM, I would say. And that's why this company operates differently than many other companies. And through the course of the years, we've been published in magazines, we've been in plenty of articles online, in the internet. This year alone, we won Best in Class Remodeler by the Home Builders Association. And the National Association of Remodelers gave us the national award for best project in the nation. So it's a lot of recognition that we received for something that basically started with the intention of helping people and continues to be focused on helping people. My number one intention is to do right to the client and to do right to the people that we employ to perform all of the trades for the clients. And everything else happens as a result of that.
So, go ahead,
It's
Miguel.
a very, very cool journey.
Yeah.
What a cool story. And thank you for laying it out that eloquently. I'd like to, if you don't mind, dissect the origins. You said something which I think caught my attention, which is, every company needs a differentiating factor that helps success. And it seems that in your case, a big part of this is I put my engineering hat on. I engage the knowledge and the know-how of my IBM days. And then I use that as a vehicle, as a tool, as a mechanism to then create or exert change or structure in my own company. Can you dissect that a little bit more? Can we go to what does IBM, how do they operate? What out of that can you say is the most impactful thing that then you transition into the processes or policies or process development? How do you bridge that, and why has it been clearly so impactful in your current business?
That's an amazing question, Miguel. And I would say that that's really the key to differentiating the company these days. With IBM, I would say that I value the most two things. One is the emotional intelligence that you build when you're managing so many people. You have to develop a leadership that adapts to the people that you manage, not vice versa. It's not you imposing yourself onto people. It's actually you adapting your leadership to what's going to be most effective to help grow people, to drive them to understand your objectives, and to create a path that they can understand and follow in order to get to the milestone that you're looking for. And for me, that's been critical because once you go into an industry like construction, everything has to do with relations. No longer I'm dealing with um, just employees. I'm dealing with subcontractors and vendors that react to the relationship that I have with them. And I am the nucleus of the project, but I rely heavily on all of these relations that are based on trust, respect, and, and direction that we provide. And if I cannot achieve that, then I'm not successful because it's a team effort. And I gained a lot of that with IBM, from adapting to working with people that were in other countries and how their culture was very unique at how they received the message. So I needed to be aware of how the higher position a message and how a specific culture would receive it versus somebody else. I would establish operations in India, in Turkey, in Israel, in so many different countries. And I literally had to be effective. And I didn't have time to fumble because they didn't get my message. I had to be effective the first time. So I had to do my due diligence on that. I think that the other aspect that became very important into my success is project management. These days we hear about project management offices in all industry. The medicine industry is incorporating project management now. Depending on some of the areas where you work, you'll see some level of exposure to that. But in technology, project management is a different type of project management. They do agile, they do scrum meetings. And essentially, just to put it very simplistically, is a methodology to organize your operation in which team members are stakeholders on a specific mission, and each one of them have a certain expertise. And they all meet for a specific purpose. They all try to anticipate obstacles and remove the obstacles collectively. And each one, based on their expertise, would raise their hand and say, okay, I can make that better. Let me do this, and that, and communicate it to the team. And let me get back on our next meeting and give you an update. So instead of being a push process where the center of gravity, where the leader is pushing actions all over the place, the experts are meeting on a table, identifying problems and obstacles to come, and all of them raising their hand. I have this expertise. I can make it better this way. I have this expertise. I can make it better this way. So they're pulling in their direction to make the situation better. And we decided to incorporate Scrum project management into the construction industry. And it's been incredible. The efficiency, the communication of the team members, it's amazing. Our projects are almost never idle. There's always a continuous flow. When normally in construction, you see gaps between a trade and another, or somebody's waiting for something to happen, and all of that is wasted time. We don't see that. We are so well integrated. The procurement team is on top of all of the orders and anything that could make the project setback with delays. The technical team is on top of the scope and making sure that the methodology of construction that we use is the best one for the specific situation. The project manager, per se, it's in the field, making sure that everything that gets executed is at the highest standard. And when you combine all of those three teams collaborating with each other, almost like a very ingrained, very nicely ingrained engine with all of these gears so tightly coupled, it is amazing. And it works so great. So I am so gracious that I learned that in a different industry. I brought it over, and that it's been so successful to implement it. And the clients see it every day. The responsiveness is incredible.
But Cesar, but I think inevitably you've had to adapt this to a certain extent, right? Because I mean, before you're in a table with people with probably PhDs and engineer and highly educated people biting at the chump to say, I can do this better and I can improve this. And, not to be demeaning, but we're talking about a completely different industry where you're potentially talking to people that don't even have a visa, that are doing work, that are laying foundational cement or, or roofing or what have not. So it seems like it's a stretch to think that you're going to have that initiative and that coordination and that thirst for improvement that you're talking about in IBM when you migrate this to the field. Am I being biased and unfair in my assessment of the
No, you're
people that you
totally
work
right.
with?
I work with the entire spectrum, from all the way to the labor, to the construction company owners, to members of my team that also have PEs in engineering, that they also have a high degree of education. I have architects, I have civil engineers, I have other engineering experts in my team, and then clients that are extremely successful, clients that own companies that generate revenues that are in the billions, um, clients that are running entire operations that are much bigger than what we can think of. Founders of companies that these days, because of privacy, I cannot mention, but we all know who they are. And then so you're absolutely right, Miguel. The big challenge is, how do you make this work that was intended for an industry that was very controlled with the type of recipients, to applying it to the whole spectrum, the of all of the different levels of education, all of the different levels of expertise. It took me over a year to change the culture of the company, to understand it. So, we had to fine tune the processes. It's not like I came and I said, okay, I'm going to just transplant it and it's going to work from day one. Absolutely not. There was a lot of pushback. There was a lot of people that did not get it. Construction has been done the same way for hundreds of years. And then suddenly I'm coming and saying, no, we're not going to do it like that. The project manager is not going to take care of absolutely everything, like with every single project. He's only going to limit himself to this much. The procurement team is going to take care of all of this, and he's going to make sure that everything arrives on time, is available before it's needed, based on the project schedule. The trades and the owners of the companies, they need to be on board to knowing how to follow a Gantt chart, a schedule, and to be available by the time that we need them. It took a lot of understanding. I had to meet with owners of companies. We have 300 subs registered with this company. And I had to meet with almost every single one of them just to explain the methodology. And then on top of that is repeating and repeating. Remember, I told you we were going to do it like this. We were going to do it like this. And fumbles happening because there was a lot of pushback going back. But let me tell you, now that everybody's on board, everybody loves it. And the efficiency that I achieve with the number of employees that I have is much superior to competing companies with many more employees. So, Miguel, to your point, is valid.
That's right. The reason I thought about bringing you in is because when you go through these processes of buying a house, thinking of remodeling, thinking of building your dream house, it's kind of like daunting, really. And you hear horror stories about people hiring contractors and such. So I kind of wanted to put a hypothetical scenario here. Miguel has built Hope Here Vascular, and he's starting out. Say in 5 years he's extremely successful, wants to buy a ranch out there in Spicewood next to us in Austin, because he comes to love Austin. after all.
You don't live
Yeah.
in Spicewood.
Well, I live close enough to
Don't say
Spicewood.
next to us.
Well, I live like 20 minutes
No,
from
no,
Spicewood.
no. Us rich people live on the other side. Okay?
You know, can you walk us through the process of, say, you know, the tips and tricks, the pitfalls of, you know, building your ideal home or remodeling your ideal home? How do you approach it? How do you like vet the person that's going to help you? What things do you as a consumer need to be aware of when engaging someone like you? Obviously, you know, we're family. I know you. I know who you are, what type of person you are. I know the type of business that you're running, but most people don't. So can you walk us through some of that? Say, okay, I got a chunk of change. I want to buy a lot and I want to build my dream house for my family.
Okay.
Where do I start?
So you touched on a couple of really good points, including the horror stories. So I would like to get those out of the way so that everybody understands what are those horror stories, and they happen a lot, and the reason for those. The first thing is that Texas and many other states, they don't require any license for someone to be a contractor, a general contractor. So literally any of you not having any experience on construction could tomorrow change careers and say, I'm a contractor, get business, and start building. And that, for me, that's a really frightening thought. I have a master's in engineering and construction, and I still encounter a lot of situations where I have to turn and look for a subject matter expert to be well informed. I cannot imagine people that have no preparation whatsoever doing this. But that's the majority of people. So you get situations where you get a bid unsubstantiated and it's much lower than what it should be, but the client is so happy because it's below their budget and they run with it. Well, guess what? Surprise after surprise, in the end you end up spending more money because you're not getting exactly what you wanted, or it was not accounted for in the beginning. You also have craftsmanship and quality issues. You get all kinds of stories about, hey, actually I took over a project in which the client evaluated our proposal. It was very detailed, but they decided to go with the cheapest bid. And at that point, he basically go on his way, do the project, and then 2 years later, he calls me back and he says, hey, Cesar, I need you to check on this. These guys not only did everything wrong, my floors are sagging, literally, but they did not finish the project and they ran with my money. So there is a few examples of horror stories. And we literally took on the project and had to completely redo everything because it was all done wrong. They did not even leverage an engineer to decide the sizing of the framing members. So, and then on top of that, you have situations where the contractor goes silent, and you just don't know what's happening. You gave them money, things are happening. Sometimes there's people, sometimes there's no one. And if the audience here is doctors who are used to working in a fast-paced environment, getting updates from experts, people treating them as professionals, it is very frustrating. So going back to your question, Lucas, let's say that Miguel wants to build a lot. The first thing that I would do is I would get a really nice architect to join the effort. I would interview and I would bring on board an architect as part of the team. I would definitely have a great realtor that would totally advise me on what would be the great location, better location, and what to consider. From the get-go, from acquiring the lot or the property, you need to know if the property has utilities in it. Sometimes you buy this beautiful lot, but the closest source for water is 500 feet away. And you need to pay to bring the water from the street all the way to the lot in order to then start what would normally take place. So leveraging a good realtor with to make sure that everything that needs to be accounted for in the lot is considered. Having a really good architect.
How do you find? Yeah, how do you find a good realtor and a good architect? What's the say you don't know anyone in real estate besides asking your friends who
Calling your family.
besides say you don't know Cesar. Is there any telltale signs that someone's a good realtor? Like I move to a new city.
Yes,
I need to find a realtor.
absolutely.
What do I do?
First of all, there is always associations that the realtors are members of, right? So in Texas, we have the Texas Real Estate Commission. You could always go there and ask him, who are your top performers? That's a really easy way of finding who are the top in the industry. The other thing is, of course, referrals. Talk to the neighbors, talk to your friends, find out who they have used in the past, what kind of experience they had. That is extremely important. These days, you also have reviews available on people. Search those individuals online. If at a service level they have reviews, read those reviews. Understand what good people are saying about them and what bad people are saying about them. And I would actually ask the person, why is this review here? What are they indicating? Why did it happen? Walk me through the situation so that they can explain themselves. But don't stop using your common sense and your gut. You're building a relationship that is going to be a long relationship. Construction of your home is going to take quite some time. So you want to make sure that you're dealing with a personality that you feel you're compatible with. And I'd say that's one of the highest characteristics that you want to look for someone that you do business with. Interview them, tell them, hey, tell me about horror stories and how you manage them. Tell me about how familiar you are with this area. What happens with architects is that you want an architect that is familiar with the regulations applicable to the location of the site. Regulations change and are dictated by cities and counties. And they're different. They're totally different. I've done projects in Silicon Valley where the regulation was different. I've done projects in ETJs in Texas where the regulation doesn't pay much weight. And then I've done projects in Travis County where the regulation is pretty, pretty tough. So when you hire your architect, that's actually the expert that is going to make sure that the design complies with the regulation for the site.
And what's the
Are there a lot of independent architects out there, or are they all tied up into companies like yours?
Well, my company focuses on the construction only. And the architects that I have in my company are basically servicing the execution of the construction only. They're not executing us as architects.
Okay. So you don't have like.
But I have affiliated architects. And what that means is that we worked with about 10 different architectural firms that we have established such a good rapport, such a good integrated process. Even though it's different companies, we have a good handoff and respect for each other. And it's almost when you're collaborating with another medical expert and you're like, yes, I work really well with this other counterpart. It's the same way. So we have those relationships, and we would, in our case, we introduce our clients to experts that we trust. But if you don't know anybody, then you're asking other people those questions, trying to get the referral. For an architect, so going back to your question, Miguel, there is some that are independent. They are the one shop, and they typically run smaller projects or smaller quantity of projects. And there is some that are part of a firm, and it's literally a group of architects. They're all working together, and typically they have higher production, and they typically handle much larger projects. So there is, depending on your project, if it's residential, if it's only one house, it is completely okay for you to go with just an individual that is independent. You don't necessarily need to go with a firm.
Is it usually cheaper to go to a guy?
I would say so. Of course, I am generalizing because in architecture there is a lot of art that gets involved. And the artistic part of the architect sets him apart on pricing as well. Where you may say, this architect has produced this phenomenal work, and I'm willing to pay more for that. Versus if you're just going with a cookie cutter home, then perhaps you can be more generic. But if you're looking for something in particular, you really want that architect to show you his portfolio of completed projects and for you to say, yes, definitely. Not only you have the product that I'm looking for, but you and I definitely get along in a sense that even if we had disputes or differences in opinion, we could resolve them. We could have a conversation and get to the bottom of it and ultimately move along the project. And those are the two aspects that you want to find early on when interviewing an architect.
And does the fee of the architect get rolled into the loan, the construction loan?
Well, actually, yes. Yes. But typically what happens, okay, so let's say you got the lot, you got with a good realtor, with a good architect, you decide to go through option on your lot. You identify that the lot has the utilities, you identify that the site is easy to build, you identify the architect tells you, hey, I think that I can achieve a design where the construction cost is going to be more or less in this range. And let me tell you, the range is going to be very broad because architects are not the ones that are going to give you the bottom-up numbers of construction. That's going to be the contractor. But ultimately, they need to design to a budget, and that needs to be the starting point. But answering your question, what normally happens is that the architect gets engaged before you have a loan in place because the lender, it is going to want to see a concept where they can produce an appraisal based on the concept of the final project. In other words, you only have a lot and the loan is going to be based on something that is going to be built in the future so that you can get more money based on what you're going to end up with. So the architect gives you a set of drawings that is going to be more basic. It's not going to be the full extent of all of the drawings. But that set of drawings is going to help you validate, yes, this is in line with what I want to do here. Let me hand it to the lender who's going to bring an appraiser, and he's going to take that drawing, basically those set of plans that are going to give you layouts, so it's going to give you some elevations. And the appraiser is going to say, if these were built today, this is how much it's going to be worth. And based on that number, then the lender will calculate the loan to value. I would say, then I can give you this much money. Okay. And if the amount of money value, if the LTV allows, then even though you paid up front for the architect, that money to you can be reimbursed through the loan.
So do you procure the lot first? Do you have to own the lot? I guess you need to own the lot and get the basic drawings.
So you got
yes, correct.
On the lot, right?
You
get the drawings. Yeah, because you're not going to get the lot before the mortgage for the lot until you have.
You do some feasibility during the option time. And that feasibility, if it were me, for example, Miguel, and I were the one buying that lot, I will basically get with the realtor and say, realtor, tell me how much a 4,000 square foot home with really nice finishes, custom built, would be worth in this lot. And the realtor would give me that number and I'm like, okay, perfect. So my acquisition cost of the lot, my design cost of architecture, interior design, permitting, all of the soft costs, engineering is this much, and construction is this much. I know that it should not exceed what the realtor just told me, right? And then I'll go to the lender and I'll say, lender, I'm trying to build a house about this size. What is everything that you need? And the lender is going to say, well, for me to feel comfortable, I need to make sure that my appraisal is on board. So during the feasibility time, everybody needs to be at least nodding their head saying, yes, that makes sense. But there's going to be a point in time in which the feasibility analysis expires. You don't have all of the variables solidified, but you have a really good gauge on all of the other participants' perspective on the lot and how much you can afford. And then you may decide if you extend that option period for an appraisal to be done. That's an option to you. Some people say, no, I think that I'm comfortable building because I have enough of a space, of room between what my project will be worth and how much the pieces should cost, where I feel that the equity in between is a good contingency for me to just move forward. Some other people say, no, I'm going to extend that option. I want that appraisal to come saying that everything is in order. Now, remember that your option may expire, but if you cannot get the loan and your contract agreement for the purchase is subject to a loan approval, you have a way out still. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it seems like it seems.
I mean,
like
what's you'll lose
you
money, right?
Yeah. Will lose your earnest if you're past the option. Fee. You will lose your option fee.
Correct.
In any situation.
And your earnest money.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it seems like the options period for a normal, like you want to build a house, usually like 2 weeks, right? This seems like you would want it to be.
I've seen options that
I would imagine.
I've seen options that range between 2 weeks and a month sometimes. And if there is enough interest from the seller side, they'll do it for you, especially if they know that you're serious about it and that it's a matter of you doing your due diligence and that you really are trying to make sure that everything is in order, not that you're looking for a way out.
Yeah.
So Cesar, the amount of people, I don't even know, this may be a dumb question, but statistically speaking, the amount of people that just buy a built home versus those that build a home, I'm going to say is probably less than 10%. Those that build against a 90% that just go out and buy a house that's either been owned by somebody or it's a cookie cutter on some community in the suburbs, like a Truman Street kind of thing. Or do you think it's more? Like it just sounds like it's a very small amount of people that would have the potential capital to execute. I mean,
we're talking about your future self here.
No. But no, just because even if it's hey, I want to build a $300,000 house.
Yeah.
Like right, but I don't know that there's a lot of people that go and build it. I think people just buy a $300,000.
That is right.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would imagine.
Yeah. So it's probably a relatively small percentage of the market that actually goes through this. And so, okay. And so with that said, if we're talking of homes above the, let's put floor of $1 million. So $1 million and above. Other than I'm going to be able to do what I want, my way, my style, and paint it that ugly purple my wife wants, right? Other than that, even in those amounts that we're talking about, bigger homes, is there a potential to save yourself some money in the exercise and not just buying a final product from some very famous, group of people that just build or a home that's been owned before? Is that question
Can
clear?
can you save money building? Is that what you're asking?
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you're building in that range, like you're already building a big. I mean, this is a big pants project. Is there, other than just the fact that I'm going to do it to my liking, is there a benefit on the financial side from doing it from the bottom up? Or is it end up, ultimately, you're probably going to end up with exactly what you would probably go out for buy, but you really get the perks of building the home of your dreams? Is it just that? Or is there, no, the day that I give you the keys, you can actually put it on the market for a 20% up or a 10%.
Miguel, every single case is unique. I've seen it go both ways. I've seen it go where literally the client develops custom work, beautiful work, and then in the end, there's still a really good chunk of equity left. And I've seen the other side where they decided to go custom with a home. They wanted to make it their own. They did not take into account what the top value of that home would be in that location, and they completely spent more than what they would ever recover. So it is a mathematical exercise. It's literally a spreadsheet with numbers.
Understood. So I guess I'll just put it this way. Regardless of what you do, you can fuck it up. That's clear. But if you're smart enough, you believe that you could get into a high range home while potentially getting yourself, building under and creating a valuation there.
With the right set of experts allowing you, fitting you numbers, that's totally achievable.
Yeah.
You can. Okay.
Yeah. If you
I'm just saying that becomes, you're saying this is for me because that's where I'm at, right? I'm at the point where we're looking at the market. We're waiting for me to be able to get that credit line to get into the house of our dreams, whatever that house means. None of it is to my liking. I mean, every place we go, I'm like, well, this is horrible and this is horrible and I never do this and I would like this and I would like this. And so then you start thinking, but then the one thing that dissuades you from that is, that sounds like the most painful process in the world to build, right? It's long, it's the headaches, it's dealing with all these people that are, potentially
scam artists.
Exactly. And then, are you ultimately going to end up, overpaying for a project, then potentially making a smart. But if you sell me on the idea that, dude, you are going to have a very reputable company in the middle, award-winning company. And if you're smart and if you're intelligent and if you're a business guy like me, and you build by the parameters, by the guardrails that I give you, I can give you to the closest house of your dreams possible with probably under 10% of what the market would actually cost you. That for me would be like, okay, well, I got to call this guy tomorrow.
Cesar, if you had two lots next to each other, identical lots, one has nothing, one has a house which you could remodel into whatever approximation your dream house would be. What would you say? Can you stack up the pros and cons as far as, energy, effort, cost?
Wow, that's an excellent question, Lucas.
He's really getting good at this, by the way. Like It's been about a year of him doing this. He's really becoming a very good interviewer, by the way.
I think that question gets to the bottom of it because a lot of people are actually asking themselves that question. Let's put them side by side. Yeah. Let's talk about the exercise of designing. Whether you're remodeling, and let's call it remodel, and just for the sake of definition, a remodel is a project where you take an existing structure and do some reconfiguration, of course, to beautify it, but you're moving walls. You are changing the location of the water source in the kitchen, the gas pipe in the laundry. You're literally turning things around to make it meet your needs. So let's say that we're comparing a remodel with new construction. Design-wise, new construction, you have no layers in between. You're designing with a clear canvas. So the design process has less obstacles to define as part of the process. When you are dealing with a new lot, you're dealing with perhaps the additional scope that has to do with the site and what the site offers. And design-wise, you may need to involve some engineers as part of the process to help you with the site itself. But architecturally, you have no obstacles in the way on how to design the house. And the sky is the limit. When you are dealing with remodels, design-wise, you are working more often than not with limitations on the existing structure that you gotta work around. And that alone is gonna add a lot of complexity in the design. At first, the architect, their first drawings are gonna be drawing the house as it is, every single wall where it is, every single fixture where it is, just to have a starting point. You didn't have to do that in your construction. So again, from a design perspective, on one, you add that you have to account for the site in a bigger extent, but the building itself is basically easier because you're not dealing with an existing structure that you are modifying. And then in a remodel, you already have all of the infrastructure in place, and you have a site that already has some sort of source for water, sewer, gas, you call it electrical. You're mostly dealing with, I have this existing structure, I have these obstacles that I gotta overcome as part of my design in order to get to where I want to be. So that's design-wise. Time-wise, typically, new construction takes longer. Typically, going through the entire process of design, permitting, and construction itself is a longer journey, definitely. Versus remodel, perhaps you're not dealing so much with bringing utilities to the site, but you're dealing with other obstacles based on what's existing and in the property. But the remodels tend to take less time. Most often than not, you're not doing an entire foundation. It's already existing. Most often than not, you're not doing an entire roof line. It's existing. You may be making modifications, you may be doing additions, but you're not doing the entirety of it. So the benefit of a remodel is that there are certain elements that you can keep intact, save money, and spend more money on some of the bells and whistles that you want. Complexity. Believe it or not, a remodel is more complex than new construction. Why? Because it is a surgery where you did not get a CT scan, an MRI, sonogram, x-rays. You did not get any of that up front. You're literally opening walls and finding things and dealing with what you find on the spot. So remodel definitely is more complicated. And in some cases, depending on how high end you're going to go and how small the scale, you don't get economies of scale. So you may be paying more per square foot, or you're doing less square foot. So, I mean, that's a lot of info.
Yeah.
What about, no, that was great. But what about financing? So we briefly talked about, you get into an option, you draw, you go to the bank, you get a loan and cover the construction. If it is a reno, can you walk up to a reno and then engage the financing group and say, I want to buy it, but I need a buy plus a remodeling? Like, how does that?
Yes, there is lenders that would do what is called the bridge loan. And what it is the loan has two aspects of it. It's got the acquisition and it's got the construction. And when you finish the project, the cost of construction and the acquisition that you had already incurred as part of a loan combines into a new mortgage that is going to capture all of that together. And that happens at the end. A new construction is similar too. And it works very similarly. You would get the loan for the acquisition. That would embed a bridge for the construction. The construction loan will account with the cost of construction that the general contractor provided that was agreed, the soft costs, and it would incur some interest. Whether you're only paying interest during the time of construction or there is a deferred lump interest payment at some point that is worked with the lender. But essentially, you get the time to acquire and build, and then everything gets converted at the end into a conventional mortgage.
Okay.
All right. I think we've covered anything else? Any other questions?
God, go for it, mate.
But no, but I think that I'll probably have to ask Cesar for an appointment.
Yeah.
So I know at the beginning you talked that you were doing stuff all over the place. Are you now just operating out of Austin, or do you still do projects?
I mostly operate from Austin, but for special clients like yourself, right now I am doing projects in San Antonio. I'm doing projects in San Marcos. I am doing projects in Lakeway. I am doing projects in Dripping Springs, right? But the majority of my projects are local to Austin.
All right. Well, Cesar,
we shall talk.
Thank you so much. Cesar also knows a lot about other kind of investment opportunities in real estate, so we should bring him back to talk about that too.
Okay.
So yeah, you have an open invitation in the future. Cesar.
I told you I ended up moving all my money to a self-directed IRA. Well, not all my. Whatever was left of what I didn't take out of the 401k, I moved it into a self-directed IRA.
Yeah.
So now it's essentially I just write a check.
Yeah.
So if there's any like good projects, like Ryan was hitting me up the other day.
Yeah.
Like you just send it. It's like you don't have to ask anybody for permission. You just execute. So that could be really cool to talk to Cesar about.
Let's do it later. All right. Well,
all right,
Cesar,
brother.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to meeting you in person, man.
Yeah. Well, when you come to the amazing city.
It's been a pleasure, guys. Thank you for having me over. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
All right, brother. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Two vascular surgeons walk into a bar and come out with a podcast. We are talking everything vascular and not. Welcome to the Life of Flow podcast.